Good morning, students. Today I am going to teach you a very interesting lesson. Chaman Hal's novel, famous novel Azadi. This novel deals with the theme of partition of India in 1947. First of all, I would like to introduce you Chaman Nahal as a novelist, as a writer who wrote about Indian background, partition of India. Unlike other novelists, Khushwant Singh, Salman Rushdie, he also talks about partition of India in a very realistic manner. So the theme of this lesson is partition of India. How he describes the theme in a real manner. Chaman Nahal, commonly known as C. Nahal, as Chaman Nahal Azadi, was an Indian-born writer of English literature. He was widely considered as one of the best exponents of Indian writing in English and is known for his work Azadi. Azadi, freedom, independence, which is set on India's independence and her partition. He is also known for the depiction of Mahatma Gandhi as a complex character with human feelings. Human feelings. So, in this paragraph, we have seen that he talks about the complexity of Gandhian character. The partition of India and the associated bloody rights inspired many creative minds in India and Pakistan to create literary cinematographic depiction of this event. While some creations depicted the massacres during the refugee migration, others concentrated on the aftermath of the partition in terms of difficulties faced by the refugees in both sides of the border. Even now, more than 60 years after the partition, works of fiction and films are made that relate to the events of partition. Literature describes the human cost of independence and partition comprises Khushwant Singh's Train to Pakistan, Salman Rushdie's novel Midnight Children, which won the Booker Prize of Literature. This novel, as shown, begins with a reference to the summer of 1947, which was noted for its scorching heat and rainless period and marked for hot and dusty atmosphere. The summer before communal riots, precipitated by reports of the proposed division of the country into Hindu India and a Muslim Pakistan, had broken out in Calcutta and several thousand had been killed. The Muslims said that the Hindus had planned and started the killing. The Hindus, on the other hand, put the whole blame on the Muslims. The truth was that both sides had killed. People belonging to both sides were shot, stabbed, speared, tortured, and raped. From Calcutta, the riots had spread north and east and west. In Noakhali, in East Bengal, Muslims massacred Hindus, and in Bihar, Hindus massacred Muslims. Mullahs were reported to have roamed with the Punjab and the frontier province with boxes of human skulls, said to be those of Muslims killed in Bihar. The Hindus and Sikhs who had lived for centuries on the northwest frontier were made to abandon their homes and flee toward the Sikh and Hindu communities in the east. They had to travel on foot, in blue carts, cram into lorries, cling to the sides and roof of the trains. So, in the several movies, for example, in Gadar, how we have seen the massacre, the bloodshed, the riots between Hindu and Muslims took place. Manomajra is the village where the situation has been represented as a location. Is the place of the action of the novel. It is a tiny village situated on the Indian border, half a mile away from the river Satluj. The Sikhs, Muslims, and Hindus lived in perfect harmony in this village, and there was a time when no one in the village knew that the British had left the country and the country was divided into Pakistan and Hindustan. The only thing that made an impact on them was the arrival and departure of trains. But soon things began to change. Partition began to take its toll in this tiny village also. There were only about 70 families in Meno Majra, and Ramlal's was the only Hindu family. The others were Sikhs and or Muslims who were about equal in number. The railway station occupied an important position and a small colony of shopkeepers and hawkers grew up around it to supply travelers with food, betel leaves, cigarettes, tea, biscuits, and sweetmeats. The peaceful life in Manu Mazra comes to a jolt when on August 1947 the village moneylender Ramlal's house is raided by Mali, a dreaded dacoit. On the roof of his house, the money lender was beaten with butts of guns and spear handles and kicked and punched. He sat on his haunches, crying and spitting blood. Two of his teeth were smashed when Ramlal, the moneylender, failed to hand over the key of his safe. One of the dacoits lunged at the crouching figure with his spear. Ramlal collapsed on the floor, uttering a loud yell with blood spurting from his belly. The dacoity had its evil effects on Jagat Singh, who was a resident of the village. The dacoits dropped bangles in his house and later he was arrested as the suspect of murder and dacoity. So, in the novel, we have seen the episode of dacoity by Jagat Singh. He was in love with Noora, which is in sense cut across religious barriers. After his release from police custody, he came to know that Noora had visited his mother before leaving for the refugee camp, carrying his child in her womb. Noora was a Muslim Weaver's daughter. His father and grandfather were also dacoits and were hanged for murder. But they were reported not to have robbed on village folk. According to Meet Singh, Sagat had disgraced his family through his acts. Hukumchand plays an important role in the novel. Hukumchand is perhaps one of the best known characters in the novel. Married to an unattractive and illiterate woman, he looked for love and sex elsewhere, but he was not exactly moral. Hukumchand considered Hindu women to be unlike other women. When it was reported that the Muslims mobs had tried to molest Hindu women, they had killed their own children and jumped into wells that filled to the brim with corpses. He wanted the Muslims to go out peacefully if possible. He was of the view that bloodshed would not benefit anyone. According to him, bad characters would get all the food and the government would blame people like him for the killing. For the same reason, he was against killing or destruction of property. But at the same time, he gave instructions to the inspector to be careful not to allow the Muslims to take too much with them. Hindus from Pakistan were stripped of all their belongings before they were all allowed to leave. Pakistani magistrates have become millionaires overnight. Some on our side have not done too badly either. Only where there was killing or burning, the government suspended or transferred them. There must be no killing, just peaceful evacuation. Police, who were always known for their cruelty, asked Iqbal to remove his dress. Iqbal loosened the knot in the cord. The pyjamas fell in a heap around his ankles. He was naked save for the handcuffs on his wrists. He stepped out of the pyjamas to let the policeman examine them. The inspector thus ensured that he was a Muslim when he said that he was sent by the People's Party of India. So, in the paragraph, we have seen how the cruelty of the police were very critical. Mob attacked were a common phenomenon in those days, and when they attacked, they never waited to find out whether the persons concerned were Hindus or Muslims. The other day, 4-6 Sardars in a jeep drove alongside a mile-long column of Muslim refugees walking on the road. Without warning, they opened fire with their stun guns, 4 stun guns. God alone knows how many they killed. A lot of women were abducted and sold cheap. Police stations were concentrated and third-degree methods were adopted to extricate truth from those who were caught. Hindus were pinned under legs of charpines with a half dozen policemen sitting on them, testicles twisted and squeezed till one became senseless with pain. Powdered red chilies thrust upon the rectum by rough hands, and the sensation of having the tail on fire for several days. All this and no food or water or hot spicy food with a bowl of steaming cool water put outside the cell just beyond one's reach. Some succumb to hunger and others to the inconvenience of having to defecate in front of the policeman. The arrival of the ghost train is another important event in the novel. Ghost train, which makes the reader flabbergasted. The arrival of the train in broad daylight created a commotion in Manubhadra. People stood on their roofs to see what was happening, and all they could see was the black top of the train stretching from one end to the platform to the other. Later, the villagers were asked to get all the wood there was in their houses and all the kerosene oil they could spare. They were asked to bring them to the motor trucks on the station side for which they would be paid. The villagers saw and smelled something wrong. The northern horizon, which had turned a bliss grey, showed orange again. The orange turned into copper and then into a luminous russet. Red tongues of flame leaped into the black sky. A soft breeze began to blow towards the village. It brought the smell of the burning kerosene, then of wood, and then a faint, acrid smell of searing flesh. There was a deathly silence in the village. The train had come from Pakistan, and everybody knew what had happened. Even Hukum Chand felt feverish to see 1,000 charred corpses sizzling and smoking while the train put out the fire. The Sikh officer said there were more than 1,000. I think he just calculated how many people could get into a bogie and multiplied it by the number of bogies. He said that another 400 or 500 must have been killed on the roofs, on the footboards, and between bumpers. In fact, 1,500 innocent people getting killed were only part of the story. Similar things were happening at other places also, and that people sing his praise in the four corners of the earth. The effect of the change, however, was significant, and as things has shown, frighteningly social as religious groups rearranged and clashed violently. It doesn't focus on the political realities and the predicament of the victims of the partition in the form of food, loot, arson, rape, abduction, mutations, murders, and displacement. Rather, he chooses to narrate the disturbing and agonizing impact that this event has on those who have not been the direct victims of the partition and yet been affected deep at the psychological and social levels. He makes it clear that many people played a part in this chaos and everyone was equally worthy of blame, all the while integrating examples of the sheer moral confusion which arises from trying to make sense of an event as momentous as the partition. So we have seen that how the burning train written by Khushwant Singh has been presented here as the very crucial phenomenon on that day. The broader implications of the novel are also emphasized by Khushwant Singh has written a compelling story of people in turmoil, far broader in its implications than its length might suggest. This is not the story of one man. It is the tale of a village led to a moral action through its own independence. The novel Azadi deals with the theme of partition of Indian subcontinent into India and Pakistan. As Chaman Nahal himself was a refugee, he writes with remarkable penetration and realism. The novelist recreates in flamboyant detail the consequences of the partition with reference to a Hindu family as they journey from Sialkot in Pakistan to Delhi, the capital of India. The novel comprises three parts: the lull, the storm, and the aftermath, that represent correspondingly the beginning, the middle, and the end of the great event. The focus of the novel is on the demarcation of the psychosomatic consequences of the partition on the individual and universal planes. The story opens on June 3rd, 1947, with an announcement by the Viceroy Lord Mountbatten declaring the division of the country into two parts, India and Pakistan. It ends with the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi on January 30, 1948. Azadi thus deals with 8 tumultuous months in the history of the Indian subcontinent. Azadi is not merely a historical document, though Mountbatten, Rajaji Jinnah, Gandhiji, and Nehru had a host of other leaders are all present. None of them appears in person in the novel. They are all described through the reactions of the people. The Punjabis are still buoyant that the leaders, and particularly Gandhiji, would never allow the division of the country. That day they accumulate in the house of Bibi Amarvati and are shown to listen with gulp of air the announcement made by the Viceroy and agreed to by Indian leaders without compensation for the Hindus and the Sikhs living in West Punjab and that is going to Pakistan. Azadi is the story of millions of people uprooted from their homes for no fault of their own, and is symbolized in the person of Lala Kasiram and his family in the searing pain they undergo in the process of this their upheaval and alienation from their homeland. Lala Kasiram, a wholesale dealer in grain, is an Arya Samajist. He has lived and proposed for many years in Sialkot and is unwilling to leave even after the partition is pronounced. He has always been friends with the Muslims and his dearest friend is a Muslim. Chaudhry Barkat Ali. Lala Kasiram could never have imagined that he would be unwanted in his birthplace and that he would finally have to leave his like many other Hindus and Sikhs. Yet his daughter became victim of communal riots. There is no family that has not lost someone. Like millions of other Punjabis, he travels on foot to India with his wife Prabharani and son Arun, moves from city to city, Amritsar, Jalandhar and Ambala, and finally arrives in Delhi to suffer more humiliation. This story represents the story of a whole nation of millions who were forced to leave their homes and to whom Azadi brings only untold misery and an uncertain future. The Muslims nevertheless commemorate their predictable freedom very victoriously, being anxious with joy, they run amok and kill Hindus and Sikhs and plunder their property, abduct and rape their women, disfigure their children, burn their houses and what not. The uprooted inhabitants of the land of the five rivers commence their demonstration in the direction of India as they don't have any place now in the land of the pure. Millions of refugees migrate to India and Viceroy Azadi is the story of Lala Kasiram and his family living in Sialkot and on the universal plane of the people exaggerated by the partisan. Lala Kasiram, the protagonist, a wholesale grain merchant in Sialkot, has earned name, fame, destiny by working very hard. His son Arun, a college student, and his beloved wife Prabharani make his family life quite happy. The first four chapters in the first part are lull very closely accustomed with his Lala Kasiram, who is a distinctive Indian of the time and whose idol is Mahatma Gandhi. Through a statement of belief, he is a nationalist Hindu living on the Muslim majority Sialkot. He loves his land and it is at the juncture in Sialkot that his father and forefather lived. The British, according to him, he be obliged to quit India and give Azadi to the Indian sea rights. Like any other Indian, he had a prejudice against the British. He hated them for what they had done to his country and wanted Azadi. However, the political atmosphere in the country is an utterly chaos. The Punjabis are kept under perpetual tension and the Muslims as well as the Sikhs fail to guess anything about the partisan. The selfish leaders play their role very shrewdly, only few men sitting and deciding the fate of the millions. So we have seen how the theme develops and provides the same information as we have seen in the story. Now we come to the conclusion how the novel has been successful and how the writer has tried to provide that significant information to us. Conclusion. A significant consideration of the partisan novels reveals that partition of Indian subcontinent was an unprecedented political event in the history of India and that the partisan novels are authentic portrayals of the contemporary political relation as literature consistently records human life. The historical event of the atrocious tragedy of the partition in 1947 in the wake of the freedom is unsurprisingly reflected in the novel. The more seismographic form of creative literature. From the epigrammatic appraisal of the history of the partition, it becomes clear that mainly it was the Muslim separatism mannered by the Communal Muslim League two-nation theory and the divide and rule policy of the British that resulted in the partition. Originally, though the Congress was not ready for any kind of division of India, finally the leaders were constrained to accept it as an inevitable alternative. Though the humiliation of the partition goes against to Jinnah and his Muslim League, he was not the first man to sow the seeds of separated tendencies. It was even before 1867 that some Muslim leaders visualized a separate Muslim nation. Later on, the antagonistic tendencies of Hindus and Muslims on the grounds of religion and the increasing dominance of Hindus and Sikhs in politics, administration, education and economic affairs widened the emotional rift between them. Unfortunately, the Indian leaders failed to keep the Hindus, Sikhs and Muslims together, and resultantly it was in 1947 that India was partitioned. So the chapter comes to an end, and I think the students have understood the theme of the novel of Partition of India. Thank you.